So I took my son to the pediatrician yesterday and she asked him, "What sports do you play?" And his answer, "None. He's an orchestra kid." And so she followed up with, "Well, what do you do to stay active?" And like it was nothing, he replied, "Oh, I go running every day." And she smiled and took a beat and said, "That's fantastic. I love that you have the motivation to do that." And I know what she was thinking. It is so impressive when somebody can do something that requires effort day after day without being part of a more formalized group with coaches and other people pushing you and telling you to go for one more lap. It's so much harder to do it on your own. And that brings me to the topic of this episode. Are online courses dead? And the connection here is what impressed that doctor, like I said, wasn't the fact that he knew how to run. The mechanics make sense to a 14-year-old boy. He's definitely past the developmental stage of learning to walk and then run. But what is more impressive is that rain or shine, every day, whether it's hot or cold, no matter if anybody's watching or not, he gets up to run. And that's the opposite of what we've been selling as a course for so many years. The idea that we sell the information, but we don't necessarily sell the transformation that goes behind it. For a long time, we let people believe that information was the hard part. But what's way more important is having that motivation and having someone to hold you accountable, sometimes to correct your form, sometimes to give you tips on those days where you feel too sore to keep going. So when people ask me, are online courses dead? I think about what that magic ingredient is that keeps people actually achieving their goals. What gets them to the finish line? And I'm certainly not the first person to ask this question or talk about this topic, but I think I may have a different answer than most. When it comes to my son and running, he actually wasn't doing it alone. He keeps a piece of paper taped to the outside of his bedroom door with a log of all of his running. So he's got the day and he writes down the link that he ran, the time it took him to run that link, that distance, and he keeps track of it. And it's somewhere we can all see it. His brothers, me, his stepdad, everybody in the house can see that log. And he likes to make it known after he's been on a run. He likes to share, "Oh, going on my run now," or "Hey, just came back from my run." Like he announces it. So we all know that he's been doing his run. So in this story is the answer we're all looking for as to whether online courses are dead. And I'll explain it as we go along. In short, good courses aren't dead, but bad courses most certainly are. So let's start by talking about what the word course actually means, because I think it means different things to different people. And when I say course, I'm not thinking of a Kajabi video library of content with no assessment, no feedback, no interaction, just talking head videos. To me, that's not a course. But for a long time, that passed as a way to make a lot of money really easily. You put your ideas out there, people can learn from them. Magic, almost. There is another version of the self-paced online course where there is real instructional design built in. So there's assessment that goes along with those videos. There are reflection activities, application, practice, some built-in course correction. That's going to get your learners a lot further than just static videos. And going up the ladder of types of courses, we've got cohort programs. And so most of these have some sort of live component where it's scheduled, you're with a peer group, think of group coaching calls. You still may be online, but you're there at the same time with an instructor present. There's a lot more interaction between the instructor and the students and between student to student themselves. So there's a lot more engagement and conversation happening live. And there's also a hybrid version of that. So you might have those group coaching calls, but you've got curriculum that goes alongside it. It could be pre recorded videos or worksheets, plus that group element, often where coaching happens or other community practices. So we often think of that, or we call it a flipped classroom style, where you're given more of the lecture style content ahead of time, ideally with something to already start reflecting on. And then you come together in a live cohort to hash out where you didn't understand things, to course correct, to get feedback on how you're doing, or really dive deep into some of those questions you may have. So all of these could be considered a course, but they look very different in practice. So, to make a stronger point out loud, when somebody says that courses are dead, I think they're talking about the first one, just videos in a library on an LMS where people can watch them at their leisure in any order. You've probably taken courses like this. And honestly, these are the type of courses that most of us will feel like we wasted our money on. And we've probably all taken too many of these, hoping for something more. But back in the day, there wasn't a lot of other options. Now there are. And so people aren't satisfied by this type of strategy like they used to be, because information isn't a hot commodity anymore. It's not scarce. It is everywhere. We have so much information thrown at us in a day. We need more than information. And clients are savvier than they used to be because they're so much more comfortable online. People have experienced the gamut of good to bad online courses. And like I said, information isn't a scarce commodity anymore, but we'll get to that more in a minute. First, let me reassure you that quality courses aren't going away. People still need to learn. We still need transformation through education. And here are a few facts for you. Global online education was valued at $204 billion last year in 2025, but it's projected to reach $280 billion by 2029. That's still an 8% annual growth. So that category of online education is not shrinking. However, the average completion rates for self-paced online courses sit at about 10 to 15%. Cohort-based courses report 85 to 96% completion, and they command 3 to 5 times higher prices. So, as a recap, we know people barely finish self paced courses and they don't want to pay top dollar for them. But the quality group programs, that's the way to scale. Those are the courses that your clients need. And you can justify charging higher prices for them because the completion and the results are so much higher. Where I think people shy away is because they do. It does take more effort from the coach. It's not a set it and forget it type of teaching for you, but it's going to be a lot more passive for your learners, which is why they don't tend to finish in the same way. So, back to an earlier point, information was once one of our scarcest assets, but that scarcity is gone. If you grew up in the 90s, 80s, 90s, like I did, you didn't have internet at your fingertips. And a physical library was really the best source of information. You had to look things up. You had to reference, okay, what book talked about that topic? But it was very static information. It wasn't updated regularly because it was in print. And so the other option you had was going straight to the source, asking somebody who knew how to do the thing that you wanted to know about and getting their download of it. So when you think about why recorded video courses worked for so long, it wasn't that they were selling a transformation. It's that they were simply selling access to what one person knew. There is that element that students want today. There's a reason why they are looking to you as their coach. Everybody's personalities are different. Everybody has a different life experience, educational experience, and they're going to have their own methodology that may be really prime for the right learner. But information alone isn't going to get your clients where they want to go. You have to couple that information with application, and that's what gets them the transformation. Yes, we do have the internet now, and even more potent, we have AI now. But while AI may make it easier to access that knowledge with a click of a button, it still hasn't touched the reason people finish things. So, let me introduce you to the community of inquiry framework. It was created, it was really finalized by Garrison, Anderson, and Archer, three Canadian researchers. They are credited with articulating this modern framework, though it's been around even before them in different forms. So what they determined is that it takes three type of presence for meaningful learning to occur, especially online. The first is cognitive presence. It relates to the student interacting with the information from that course or that learning experience, where they can reflect and identify, what is it that I know? Where is it that I'm struggling along this continuum? Am I able to apply what I've learned and make it work in my own situation, in my own real life? That awareness and ability, that's your cognitive presence. There's another type of presence. It's called social presence. And that relates to seeing your other peers and your instructor as a real person. Just knowing that we're all real people learning this together. We're going to struggle. We're going to have successes and want to celebrate with one another. Just seeing other people as real and going through the journey with you, it makes you feel like you're not in it alone. You have somebody to reach out to if you have questions, or like I said, share your successes or your challenges. And so it is being among a group of people who see you trying, who see whether or not you show up, who ask about your kids or say happy birthday when they realized you just turned 45, whatever it is. They just see you as real people and makes it more fun and enjoyable. And third, it's the teaching presence. And that is what we think of in traditional teaching classrooms. Someone designed to help set the path and make sure you are completing things as they help facilitate it. So part of that teaching presence relates to them actually telling you what they know, giving you their wisdom and downloading it so that you can receive it. That is part of the teaching presence. It's also creating a space for you to facilitate giving instructions, giving you practice activities. All that is the role of a teacher. So if I have a recorded video library, typically it's going to be a little lower on this scale of cognitive, social, and teaching presence. So the cognitive presence, unless it's been designed really well, is usually weak because it's mostly passively receiving information. Unless you stop, and this is where instructional design comes in, if you ask learners to do something with that information, to stop and reflect, to go out and try or apply what it is you're teaching them, to follow along while you're showing them the steps. That would add to the cognitive presence. But in most video courses I've seen, it's totally missing. It's just the teacher, the educator, the coach or mentor sharing what they know, sharing their stories. And that's not enough. When it comes to these self-paced online courses, there's usually no social presence. They're taking it by themselves. And so that element is absent. Sometimes you can add to it if you are a very engaging instructor and share a lot about your own personal examples, your challenges, maybe your own ups and downs with learning the content. That can help that social presence. But remember, there's no other peers in it and there's no interaction. It's all one-way information. The teaching presence will be there in those pre-recorded videos, but typically it's all front loaded. So you may give them advice, but you're not there to check in if something goes awry or if they've actually tried it and they're ready to get feedback. It's all up front. You tell them what to do, and then it's up to them. So the teaching presence has a very short shelf life. So when it comes to more of a cohort, hybrid, or group coaching experience, that cognitive presence is usually going to be a lot stronger because you will be asking them to reflect, to share, to go out and practice things, come back and tell the group how it went. That cognitive awareness is going to help your learner, not just passively listening, but knowing, ooh, somebody is holding me accountable to come back and share how it went. The social presence is also a lot higher because there is a group of people who can chat, whether it's in message form or whether it's in another community space like Telegram or Slack. Those communities are helpful stopgaps between sessions. When you have that burning question, when you had an amazing victory, share it with the group, have other people celebrate with you. Or if you are struggling so hard, you just need some reassurance that you're not alone. That's what the group does. And then finally, that teaching presence is continuous because you're there at checkpoints to help course correct when somebody is having a hard time. Or if they try things, you're there to give them feedback on how it went. You're there to answer their questions when they tried what you taught them and want to make sure they're understanding it right, or had a follow-up question, or are still confused because it didn't work for them quite like they hoped it would. So much higher levels of cognitive, social, and teaching presence when you have a live cohort or group to learn with. So that video library, really, it was only its strongest on one presence, and then it kind of the other two were almost non-existent. And that's why such a low number of course completions exist for these self-paced online courses. 10 to 15%, not a lot. And it's not a discipline problem in your buyers, it's a design gap. So the pushback, I know AI can give feedback now, and it's actually getting pretty decent at it. But the problem is nobody's embarrassed to ghost a chatbot. They're less likely to give up if they know you are going to reach out, a real human's going to reach out, or if the friends they've made in your group coaching program are going to check in on them. If somebody's going to miss that they're there, their likelihood of dropping out completely goes way down. And it is true, like some of us want to be polite. And I have done this even in my conversations with Claude. And I realized a while ago, why am I letting Claude know that's all I needed for today? Thanks. I stopped saying please and thank you and giving it little updates on my situations, my challenges, my progress. I get what I need. I get out. I don't think of it as a peer anymore because there's no consequence. It's not real. And I don't want to trick my brain into thinking it's real. So that's the problem with so many of these online courses. Nobody notices when you go quiet. They've got their money. The coach has done their work. That's where their care stopped. Social presence isn't content alone. And it doesn't get cheaper when content goes to zero. So we've got some issues to work on. So, what does this all mean for the way you build your course or program? Design for application, not information. Think of it as being in a real classroom, having people holding you accountable, having people watching you try it, and giving you their honest opinions and feedback. So, here are my tips for you when you're designing. Make sure that every module you build asks your learners to do something, not just know something, but actually do something with it. And that's where not only are you going to figure out if they're understanding or not, if they're able to apply it, that understanding is very low level. That's the first step. That's like, okay, I watched you do it. Yep, I understand why you did that or how you did that. It doesn't mean I can do it myself yet without practicing it. I can understand how something works, but it doesn't mean that I am skilled enough to do it smoothly myself. Just like when you're learning a new language, I know so many people have said, like, yeah, I understand pretty well, but I can't speak it. Then you haven't learned the language. Passive reception is so much easier. It's not nothing. It is a starting point. It is a foundational building block. But to actually use your own words, share things out of your brain and create something, that's going to be where you actually see whether you truly have learned the thing or not. Okay, the next thing that I think is really important is building in those feedback loops. So, those static video libraries, great. You can have all the brilliance and wisdom in the world. You can even tell somebody what to do to try it on their own. But if there's nobody to give them feedback on how they did, then it just falls flat. The chances of things falling off are much greater. So, it's like when we would turn in homework. I remember working hours and being so proud of something I had written or created, and then simply getting a check mark on it. Like, what the heck? It felt like such a waste. I wanted somebody else to read what I wrote. I wanted them to tell me, to validate my thoughts, or to course correct or point me in a new direction. A check mark makes me feel like you didn't even look at it. You don't care. So we want actual feedback, one to one, back and forth, teacher to student or student to student, comments on how you did, somebody to witness you. The other beauty that I think the best courses undertake is planning for course correction. Sometimes your students are at a level you didn't expect. Maybe they're above what you planned. You don't want to give them things that are below them. You don't want them to feel like they're stagnating because they need bigger challenges, but you also don't want to challenge them so much that they give up because it's too hard. So there's that sweet spot. Sometimes you plan a module and things go beautifully, but sometimes you realize, oh, we went deep on this. We need more time. We need to spread this topic out. Or how do we adjust so that I can match the level of my students and what they need? Having some flexibility built in, that's another thing that your video libraries can't do. They don't know how to course correct because they're not actually interacting live with anybody. So, the other thing, we know people drift. We know that it is natural. Learning can be hard, especially when you're learning something meaningful, especially when it requires mindset changes or really complex skills. It takes time. And so we want to set our learners up for those early wins. We want to build the social connection so they know they're not alone. And we want to show them early on, yes, you can do this thing. You can do these elements of this bigger thing that are going to get you the success. Make them feel capable. Don't throw the whole mountain at them at once. Make it bite size. Think about the sequence that is building from a lower level to a higher level skill. All of that is you helping to ensure your learners don't get overwhelmed. And then I would also say make sure to add reflection on purpose. It is one of the easiest things we can do for our learners to make them more cognitively aware. But I think we kind of assume they're doing it themselves. And since we can't always see what is happening inside a learner's brain, we tend to shortchange it. It's not as flashy as sometimes some other assignments, but it is so important. And so making sure that we're not shortchanging and that we're actually encouraging, like, no, no, no. I've built this workbook on purpose. I've added the reflection questions. Don't skip over it. Actually write out your answers. It's so important. And then Put people in a room with each other. Even if you are in a video call like Zoom, you can still do breakout rooms. You can still bring in the voices of the students so that they hear one another, not just you as the teacher. That's another reminder that they are powerful sources of information, that they have ownership and buy-in, and it helps them to see that they're not alone, especially because likely their peers are more at the same level they are. Even if they're above it, it gives them something to aspire to. Even if you have somebody who's new to their business, brand new this year, and somebody who's been in business 20 years, those two people can absolutely learn from one another. So make sure you add opportunities for social interaction. Because, like we said, from community of inquiry, it's super important. All right. So, anyone can generate content now. We know that. It's super easy. We've got AI, we've got the internet. If you Google now, you're not researching, you're just asking AI to do the research for you. So that's not the news for 2026. And it's actually good news if you were actually not selling content in the first place. Content isn't the hot commodity anymore. It's the architecture underneath, how you sequence things, the decision points, giving people ability to practice, providing a little friction on purpose. The exact spots where people quit, make sure you have the support to help them continue. Get over those hurdles. Those human elements, that's what's going to help your learners succeed. And there's not a perfect prompt for it. It's so based on human instinct, individualization, personalization, but you can do this in group settings. But AI isn't there yet. So here's the long and short of it. Courses aren't dead. The version of a course that treated learning simply as a delivery problem, oh, where do I host these videos? That version is dead. It doesn't matter what platform you use, choose whatever LMS you like. What matters is how you take your students on a journey from point A, being a total novice, for instance, to point B, then point C, and ultimately point Z, where they can actually do the thing you've taught them, where they have a newfound confidence and ability. People are starving for interaction, and I don't think lifelong learning will ever go away. It is human nature for so many of us. We want to grow and improve, but we want it to feel easy. Learning isn't necessarily easy. It takes effort. We know that. It's not a passive source of information. But if you are in a supportive community, it's going to make learning so much better. If you learn how to become more cognitively aware, to celebrate the wins, to think back on what could I not do 2 months ago that I can do now, that is impressive. That is amazing. Having other people to witness you and celebrate your wins, and having a teacher to course correct when their instructions are off or when they realize they need to shift the lesson a bit to meet the needs of the group. That's where meaningful learning happens. When you have those three ingredients, the cognitive, the social, and the teaching presence, that is where the magic happens. So, a static course on running, just the fundamentals of how to run, that absolutely could have gotten my son started. But it wouldn't have gotten him to 100 days of running in a row. A community is what did that. His entire family and our neighborhood cheering him on, witnessing the days he's running in the rain, he's running when it's hot, he keeps going. His stepdad taking him to 5Ks and celebrating his successes. That's kept him going. Me giving him a stopwatch I used to use when I taught HIT classes and showing him how to use it, giving him those extra tools. All of that is what helped him reach his goal, not the simple mechanics of running. ChatGPT could give you the ideal running schedule for your level of fitness and your goals. What AI bots promise is always the answer, but what your clients need is a human guiding them through the ups and downs of learning. So if you want to create a course that you can set and forget, I'd say don't waste your time. Those courses are dead. But if you genuinely care whether your students get results, go make that course. Thanks for tuning in to the Learning Alchemy Lab. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and come connect with me on Instagram at Alexis Bajelica. Until next time, go get that expertise out of your head and into something that scales.